Cult and Classic.
Welcome, friends and fiends, to another mini-sode of Cult and Classic Podcast. These are the short Friday episodes that we bring you just to tide you over into your next full Cult and Classic Podcast episode fix on Tuesdays. We've got awesome stuff coming up in the next few months, so I'm really glad to be here on the pod with all of you listening. Thank you to our listeners, as always. And I want to say, reach out to us if you have recommendations, questions, advice, just want to say hi. Reach out to us at cultandclassicpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us and message us at Cult and Classic Podcast on Instagram and at facebook.com/cultandclassicpodcast. We appreciate you so much. We wouldn't be here without you. So for this week's minisode, we are reviewing Enola Holmes, 2020's film about fictional younger sister of fictional famous sleuth Sherlock Holmes. This is a Netflix original film starring Millie Bobby Brown of Stranger Things fame, Henry Cavill of Superman and Witcher fame, and Helena Bonham Carter of spooky lady acting roles. She does a great job, as does everyone here. We also have Sam Claflin playing the brother Mycroft, the Sherlock's brother from the original Arthur Conan Doyle novels and short stories. And I will say that this film, if you're not sure what to expect, it plays a lot like the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes films by Guy Ritchie, except perhaps toned down a bit. They are based off a series of young adult novels, the Enola Holmes Mysteries by Nancy Springer, who's a very famous fantasy and science fiction novelist of both adult and young adult fiction. She's won the Edgar Allan Poe Award, the James Tiptree Jr. Award, and lots of awards. She's 72 now, and she's written many fantastic things in her long career. So the Enola Holmes series is one of those series that she's written that she's gotten acclaim for, and this is, to my knowledge, the first film adaptation of them. Now, Millie Bobby Brown, famous for playing Eleven from Stranger Things, she also made her debut in the Kaiju universe with the last entry in the American Godzilla series, Godzilla King of Monsters. She talks a lot more in this one than she did in Stranger Things, obviously, as she played Eleven, the initially mute and then lady of little words in Stranger Things. She does a good job here. She has a lot of screen time to fill. She has to do a lot of fourth wall breaking monologues, lots of facial acting, and it comes off pretty well. Speaking more than she does in her other roles, I will say that I did occasionally find she speaks from her nose and it gets a little nasally, but that's really nitpicking, and it doesn't take away from the fact that she does a fantastic job, and she's very charming in this film. Henry Cavill, who is my only Superman, is definitely a presence in this film, although Sherlock, who he plays, is not in any way the main character. He plays a somewhat reserved and quiet Sherlock, different than the Robert Downey Jr. Guy Ritchie Sherlock, but again, this film feels like it is in the vibe of the Guy Ritchie movies. So if you enjoy those movies, you probably enjoy this one with a few caveats. Sam Claflin plays Mycroft. As I said, Mycroft is not likable in this film. If people are expecting the jovial, crazy, naked Mycroft from the Guy Ritchie movies, then they're going to be disappointed with this take played by Sam Claflin. Definitely more of the strict headmaster, the no fun older brother kind of character. Helena Bonham Carter, as I said, plays Eudora Holmes, the mother of Enola and the other Holmes children. She is a very strange parent. She doesn't believe in traditional schooling, but she believes in education, reading, botany, and of course, suffragette rights. And that is kind of a plot point in this film, although I think it takes a back seat. So the plot is that Enola has been raised exclusively by her mother, much to Mycroft's dismay, and one day, Eudora leaves. She's gone. In the middle of the night or early morning, she's gone, and Enola is left all alone. Sherlock and Mycroft come back to take care of her and the estate, and to talk about how they can find their missing mom. Turns out that Eudora is planning a big explosion in the lawmaking process, literally an explosion with explosives, to counteract the negative conservative views on women's rights in the UK at the time. Now, we find this out because we follow Ilona as she runs away from the hoity-toity, fancy, and altogether crappy girls' school, finishing school sort of, that Mycroft sends her to. And she sort of bumbles her way through London, trying to find her mom. She does a pretty good job about it. Bumble's probably not the right word. And she ends up renting a very crappy room and becoming entangled with a rich young man who is being hunted by an assassin. And he is next in line to be a lawmaker who can be an extra voice to support or deny women's rights in the UK. This sounds like a lot of stuff. It's really not that complicated. Most of the film just follows Enola looking for her mom and discovering herself in sort of a coming-of-age comedy drama. I say drama, it's not really that serious, which is kind of a nice thing in these days of really heavy politics and tragedy and disease and things that we're facing in the real world. So it's a nice escape. Now, I earlier said that if you enjoyed the Robert Downey Jr., Guy Ritchie, Sherlock Holmes films like I did, you'll probably enjoy this one. That's true. But it sort of plays like an American Girl doll backstory, Oliver Kittredge meets Sherlock Holmes film. It has moments that are kind of cutesy. It's definitely going to appeal to a young adult audience, but I don't think adults are left out of the loop. Of course, we have excellent acting, which is something everyone can enjoy. And also there's some fun fight choreography. Millie Bobby Brown holds her own against assailants in this, and there's some funny moments. There are moments also where I think that the stylized film devices that are used, like animated cutscenes and fourth wall breaking monologues, could probably have been removed and made a more solid cinematic film. The reason I say this is because it's very cute and it's a very easy way to get exposition done, especially when you have a charming lead. But it ends up detracting from some of the tenser scenes. Now, whether that's intentional or not sure, but it probably drops this film down a few marks on the old excellent film meter. But again, it's still pretty solid, it's pretty fun. My biggest complaint with Enola Holmes is that the actual detective work is fairly limited. We're not talking about a real Sherlock, amazing discoveries, every detail is analyzed, no one else in the world could have seen this telltale clue kind of situation. It's pretty straightforward. And, you know, if you're looking for a really solid mystery, you're not going to find it here. That's not what this film is. It's more of a drama, action, adventure, coming of age mashup. Now, family film, yeah, no one's going to find anything objectionable in this movie, I don't think. And the cast and the writing is pretty solid as well overall. So it's more than you're going to get for most family films these days that are live action, if I don't mind saying, and I don't. So overall, do I give Enola Holmes a thumbs up? Yeah, watch this movie. If you have a Netflix account, there's nothing to lose. If you don't like the first 10 minutes, turn it off because you're not going to like the rest of the film. They're very clear about that going in. If you want to taste here, let's listen to this clip from the beginning where Millie Bobby Brown as Enola sort of explains the vibe of the movie to come.
The first thing you need to know is that my mother named me Enola. She insisted on it, in fact. Enola. I know it's an unusual name, but my mother is rather a fan of word games. And what? Get set, go. And Enola spelled backwards reads, well, alone.
So that's the vibe. The music, the narration, that all gets you into the mindset to enjoy a film that's not going to be too serious, but will have some nice emotional moments. I think that the problem with the film lies, as I said, it's not really a detective story, and it's also a little overlong. Listeners of the pod will know that I am a stickler when it comes to long movies. If there's not enough to say, don't say it. And this is one of those cases. It's 2 hours and 3 minutes long, not ridiculously long, but this is an hour and a half movie. It doesn't have the complicated plot or giant action set pieces that would call for a 2+ hour movie. Now, is it going to bother anyone? Probably not. Really young kids might get bored, but I think that the target audience of teens up through adults, they're going to be engaged enough to see it through. And that's heavily because of Millie Bobby Brown's charisma. If you don't like Millie Bobby Brown as an actress thus far in her career, this is probably not going to change your mind. She's definitely in her element here with sort of a cheeky English girl on her own. That also brings us to another sticking point about this film. I don't think the ending is very realistic. This is not a spoiler per se, but it ends with her striking out on her own in London, as opposed to, say, living and learning from her big brother Sherlock about the detective game. The problem with this is that London is not, just like any big city, a place for a really young kid to live. Even in this movie where most things seem fairly safe, it's not believable. And I also don't really see where it's going to go. The book I did not read, so it very possibly ended that way, but I'd have to assume that the tone was different in the novel if that's the case. Because in this one, it's real enough that the idea of Enola striking out on her own and staying that way at 14 or so, or 15, is not believable. But again, that's just a tiny little piece of the puzzle, and it doesn't really ruin the overall picture. And we can assume that Sherlock knows what she's up to, whether or not the movie tells us that. So everything's good in the end. That's been this mini-sode of Colton Classic Podcast. If you like these mini-sodes, let us know. Drop us a line at coltonclassicpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us at Instagram at Colton Classic Podcast, facebook.com/Colton Classic Podcast, and please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform and review us on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much, and to play us out, as always, is the wonderful The Chud with All About Evil.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to Colton Classic Podcast. This podcast is important to me, but what's more important are the rights, privileges, and freedom from violence of everyone in this country and in this world. And that means supporting Black Lives Matter. If you'd like to make a donation, please go ahead and visit coltonclassicpodcast.com, where we have a list of places you can donate and help out. And please stay safe.